these weeks, I swear I'm actually going to restore our bumper music into this new broadcast platform we've adopted.
I think it's better just to keep talking about it. Like, honestly, that's the new intro. It's like one day we'll have intro music. It's kind of like Adam Savage podcast, who's
we should play it into our ears and try and sing it and record that, and then just see how that nice trampled by turtle shirt. Love it.
You mostly have good ideas. That's not one.
That's not a good one.
I've got my Missouri and I've got my Minnesota.
Big show today. We got a really big show. I'm sorry. The snark value for me is extremely high. It's a holiday weekend. We hope everyone is safe and well. I'm Doug Splinter.
I'm Todd Kidda.
And you're watching Office Flash Friday. We are on the air with a special build episode. There was amazing announcements. And then some of it impacts a little bit of what I was going to show on our continuing graph application. So I will pick that thread back up. But these announcements were impactful to that. So,
well, you know what I just saw, like literally with my eyes right now? I saw the new Graph API for To Do. I literally just saw that right now.
That's awesome. Right. So we're only going to cover some of it because a lot of amazing. We'll keep going in case you missed it. So over the next few weeks to show people more and more stuff.
You know, Michelle says she misses the music and she wants us to sing it.
Okay. So. Well, I appreciate that valuable feedback, and that's all I have to say about that. Okay. So let's hit it. You're up first. So and we both have lenses on developer stuff, team stuff, security announcements, Azure AD announcements, chock full of goodness.
And the second and probably maybe only time ever 2 Power BI desktop releases in 1 month.
Right?
Pretty ridiculous.
All right, Todd, go.
All right. So I do want to start by saying that build was this week. I think the team, when all this stuff started happening, you know, there was a bunch of conferences coming up. There was our conference. There was other technology companies had conferences. We opted to proceed. And I think some people were kind of like, oh, that's an interesting choice one could make. And my goodness, Doug, it was, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic. It was magical. Like,
it was a little astonishing. You got to go back and watch it. Like, it was
hours.
Some of it was a little human centric. Like, some of it was staged, like where people would interrupt. Others were not. Like, kids came into rooms.
Dude, I don't know. You know what it felt like to me? Because I'm of an age where, so I'm 40. Okay, and so I'm of an age where I was a little kid. Cable was newish, right?
Yeah.
And it reminded me of like early cable TV.
Yeah,
right?
There you go. That's fair.
Kind of like,
there were Easter eggs and it was crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get to content. It was fun. Yes. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. Go dig in. But what do you got?
All right. So this is I'm not gonna like go into detail on this post, but this is really amazing. The point of this is that they gave Microsoft 365 the love this week. A bunch of sessions around graph connectivity, team stuff. I know you're going to talk about that as well. Creating DevOps workspaces and teams. So if you're a developer, you have kind of that, you know, developer bug, or you're supporting developers in your organization, check out some of these things. The Fluid framework is going to be amazing. This was fantastic. So
that got to Reels this week. The Fluid framework got to Real. Last year it was these prototype components. This time they were showing off like the power of low latency, you know, near synchronous mass activity. Yeah. It's crazy.
I think that to most people, Fluid was still very ethereal before this week, and that's okay because now it's this real thing. So I'm kind of excited about where they're going.
Yep.
This one is so cool. All right. So the Common Data Service, CDS, and we got CDS has TDS. So you can open up an SSMS. All right. So what does all that mean?
Medicine for that? Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So the Common Data Service has a series of endpoints, right? So it has an OData endpoint. But guess what? CDS behind the scenes is SQL Server technology, right? Sitting in Azure. So why not let you connect straight to that through what we're calling this tabular data stream? So if you wanted to use something like SQL Server Management Studio or any other tool on the planet that knows how to connect to SQL, of which there are more than 2, you can use that to connect to the TDS in CDS. So I think this is amazing.
That is cool, and it really makes it interesting because of a companion one they talked about where actually we were showing in SQL Management Studio, you could call out to machine learning models with your data as part of a SQL query. so if you just know SQL, you can go hit common data services, retrieve customer records and other things from the common business objects, and then combine them together. That was insane.
So Doug, I think you know about me that I kind of wear two hats, right? I kind of wear this, well, I like to think I wear many hats, right? But I have a developer hat that I wear. And for me, this week, if you go watch like Mark McCurry's session at Build around the Common Data Service, it's not just a tool for, on the modern work side or on the citizen dev side. It is an enterprise development platform at this point.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. So go check out Mark McCurry's session if you want to see kind of how powerful this stuff can get. All right. I've got Power BI all the way down here. So we have introducing the preview of Power BI deployment pipelines. I believe that I've referenced this before. In the past, people have had to resort to either manual process, which we all know how well that always works, and or scripting. Which is fine, right? I think you kind of came up with the gap analogy, the GUI API and the Power something, right? Or PowerShell.
The mind the gap
to get what you need to get done. But really, at the end of the day, lifecycle management was something that needed to be in the platform, and here it is. So I think this is something that I'm going to commit to doing a demo on, because this is kind of, you need to see it to believe it. But being able to go from dev to test to prod through different workspaces for all your Power BI assets is pretty amazing. So I think I'll show a demo on this coming up and talk about some of the edge cases and things like that as well. So I'm really excited about this. Again, all maturity. Speaking to the maturity of the platform. Speaking of maturity of a new feature that just launched, support for service principals if you're using the XMLA endpoint. Remember, XMLA endpoint is a premium feature, but you no longer have to connect to that endpoint using a named human as that. You can use a service principal. So for doing automation, if you want to put like logic apps or power apps or not power apps, Power Automate in front of this or other scripting, you can use service principals to connect to that XML endpoint for managing your partitions or refreshes or things like that of your models in Power BI. So
service principals are more restricted security constructs, so they are strongly preferred, I guess would be the way that I would phrase that.
No doubt. So if you're doing, let's put it this way. If you're doing automation against XMLA in Power BI, use service principals, the end, right? So go ahead and do it. If we just want to make that guidance really clear. I thought this one was a nice touch. So we've been improving upon the Power BI Premium Capacity Metrics app. That's a mouthful for a while. And we've transitioned it over to being a template app. So why is that important? It allows you to share with more people. So if I can bring that in and make it just like a set of reports inside Power BI and connect to my actual data that's in my premium capacity, I can bring that in and distribute and share that with people in my organization that need to see what's going on. So as more people are using premium and more customers than ever are spinning up multiple premium environments, you need to keep tabs on these things. So this is, I just love this UTC offset dialogue, right? We've talked about time zones so many times.
Time is so hard. It's
the hardest. It's the hardest. That needs to be on that list, like computer science, right? There's two hard things, right? Naming and cache invalidation. I think the third thing needs to be time zones.
I was doing a hackathon yesterday. I was helping out with one, and they wanted to have an approval workflow stop for 3 days, and then depending on the result of it, then escalate and go on. And there's that timeout value where you can put like on a workflow state.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different time format. It's like the ISO 9601 time format, which is like the P12D or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man.
Daytime formats are like also a subcategory of difficult in their own pattern.
Yeah, and I was just hoping what it would give me is wait until this date within the flexible date range. So I had done the UTC convert +3, and I was like, that goes in, nope, different format.
I'm gonna totally alienate most of the audience here, but if I have anyone in the audience that's a .NET person, since we're talking about time zone formats, since I've been a .NET person since day zero, and datetime formats like the little like DD, MM, capital M, like all those, you kind of learn to memorize some of those, but they're kind of also difficult to memorize. They've added IntelliSense into the developer tooling to just tell you what the formats are. It's like, oh my gosh, where's this been for the past 18 years?
I know, because
So,
there's so
anyway.
many, right? And they're all overloaded with options and right.
Whoops.
So
I'm gonna come back to desktop last. Oh, this one's awesome. New API, new set of reports that are sitting on those APIs for refresh summaries. So this is fantastic because this allows you as an admin to either again hit those APIs or look at the views in the admin portal to tell you errors in the last 7 days around refreshes in Power BI. I like this one, the use case around hotspots. Like, okay, everything, we're really getting killed Sunday at noon or midnight. Let's maybe talk to some folks, because the next one is, who are the people that are refreshing these? So I can reach out to them and say, hey, maybe we could stagger our refreshes a little bit to make better use of our environment. And I can put automation around this because, again, APIs. And then finally, kind of some statistics, right? So based on the past 60 days, like how many, who's refreshing the most, how long is it taking, what's the average duration, those kinds of things. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And again, I love that we are kind of giving you the APIs and the views at the same time. So this is great. The data culture feature right here. I've talked about this one many times, but we have GA of shared and certified data sets inside Power BI. And if you're rolling out Power BI in any kind of capacity in your organization, you need to be looking at certified and promoted data sets and how you're using that and how you're training your users on what those things mean.
Can I say how important that is inside of Microsoft, just for those concepts? Like, if you think about the orgs you and I work for in the technology centers, that there's always data views, right? And some are produced by directors, some come from our worldwide org, some come from the United States organization, who are all, and they're making these for different legit purposes. But who is the one who really is the custodian of this thing, right? You can kind of find your way to the real, so-and-so, please stand up. So,
and honestly, I think it gives a freedom to people that aren't trying to be a steward of an official data set, right? Because that's the third category, right?
It's legit
and use at your own risk. Right?
Yeah, but it's legit that you are able to do that and to virally share and build. Like, that's completely okay. Like, that's the point behind citizen report development, right? But you still need, this goes almost back to the whole DevOps plus citizen development thing. Like, where are the real apps and where are the ones from the community that may enlighten and endorse and become the next real thing?
That's right.
So that continuum is important.
It's super important. And again, if you guys want to see us talk more about that from the culture side, just let us know, and we're more than happy to do it. Yeah. All right, new Power BI desktop. Again, my usual thing here. I'll just kind of scroll through and call out some really interesting things. This one's really cool. I honestly, I've seen it demoed. I need to play around with it a little more. This is around curating feature tables for Excel. So that's interesting. What the heck does that mean? So Excel has these like specific data types that it knows about: customers, suppliers, those kinds of things. And it can connect if the user says, okay, this column right here represents a customer, and in Power BI, I have things that I've designated as customer. It can go out and like get more information, right? About, where is that? Let's Stop and Shop. Where is that? Oh, it's in San Francisco, right? And it's powered by Power BI. I can click through and see these things. So this is really interesting. Again, back to culture of data and curation of data in the enterprise and how these things get surfaced. So I need to look more at this one and see how I think it's going to get used. I think it's probably still early days for that, but I think that's a really neat kind of way to think about it.
To me, this reminds me of like when we first got really good inside of Microsoft to having the people cards, right? You'd hover on a person's name and the people card flies out, right? Yeah. And we got really good at that. I think organizations should be able to get really good at flyout cards. So anywhere you see a customer record, you have this consistent flyout experience. And to me, this supports that.
Anybody? Yeah. I think Fluid has it. Man, someone thought about this, didn't they?
And I'm going to show the Graph Toolkit and the instrumentation of some of those components in a little bit, so that'll be fun.
Cool. Well, I'm going to keep to one more minute here just to be kind. Apply all filters, right? So if I want to change a bunch of filters in the filters pane and not have them apply one at a time, I can click apply, right? So this is again one of those where the Excel people are like, yeah, okay, we've had that forever. So now we have it in Power BI too. Thank you. Let's see, a couple others. I was showing this to my wife actually as I was prepping this morning. I love that we call out our interns. Like, that's so cool. How cool! Like, Parker was able to go show his mom and dad. Like, look what I did. Like, that's awesome. I love it.
It is awesome, and it shows that you don't have to be some 30-year vet to contribute to this stuff.
Totally. Yes. Enhancements and change detection. So if you're doing like real-time direct query in your Power BI desktop, that's cool. I'm not going to go through all this. A bunch of new visuals, a bunch of new data connectors. Like I couldn't believe the number of data connectors that were added this month. It's just it's crazy. So go check this out. Doug, it's halfway through the show. I'm going to hand it back over to you, sir.
Yeah, we're gonna be a little collaborative. I'm gonna shift over here and get this going.
And just a heads up, I may have to.
Yeah, you're gonna exit. You're gonna exit stage left at some point in time, right? So that we have a little bit. So we should be on top of that. So I was curating through a bunch of stuff, and I want to make sure I got the right components up right now. And I am still coming through for rendezvous, I believe, right? Good. Let me double check. I have. Here we go. All right, cool. So I wanted to go through. There was I had like a whole bunch of tabs and stuff open on top of that. So they had the what's new in Microsoft Teams, right? And this is build. So this is not the core stuff, right? And so we had, make it easier to build and publish apps. So there's a Visual Studio Code extension for Teams now. So yeah, Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. So you just put the Teams extension in, and that manifest creator that previously lived in Teams and all the rest of the adaptive card controls and everything else, it's now just a Visual Studio Code plugin.
That's amazing.
It's absolutely beautiful. So you can do all this stuff and do if you're all developer inclined. So it's now available in public preview. You can toss it in. You get a Teams app, a little widget on the left side of your Visual Studio Code. If you have not played with Visual Studio Code or done anything, go out and do some VS Code 101s. It's amazing. Put VS Code and Node.js on your machine, and I'm telling you, dude, it's fun.
Even if you're just using it for like file editing, right? Like editing JSON documents in XML.
It's great.
It's brilliant. Yes.
Okay, so then we integrated full authentication and publishing from Power Virtual Agents into Teams. So now if you publish a bot into Teams, the auth stuff goes away, like all that stuff. So you get dynamic sign-on into the bot. So the bot inherits your authenticated context and all the rest of that stuff from it. So there you go, right? And that is in, I believe, the next release of the PVA build, but they showed it off at build, and I think the previous stuff are out there on top of that. So then they had simplified Power Apps and virtual agents add to Teams. So remember how we showed how you do the export, you do the import, and it stays up to date? Or Todd, you could just go ahead and say add to Teams, and then you hit add, and it publishes to the Teams application gallery.
So that demo we did like 3 weeks ago was already harder than it needed to be.
That's what I said. Like we showed this off, and I'm like, a few things have changed, so we should go back. Someone watched a YouTube video for 2 weeks ago. Why are these chuckleheads pointing out like the wrong way to publish these things? Well, because it didn't exist.
In the past.
We should, it's like, what are we going to always wait until after build? Like, you don't know what's going to be announced. So enhanced workflow automation. So now you get direct flow integration on top of it. Notice that you have, the whole UI flow and the rest of that stuff. So that there is Power Automate triggers and actions specifically built for Teams for automated app mentioning and customized bot experiences and the rest of those kind of things. And we've shown previously examples of using the adaptive card stuff, which is now both in the Teams app manifest creator, where you can do adaptive card work within Teams and then publish those and use those in Flow, or now over in VS Code if you don't want to author. And the one reason I like authoring in VS Code is because sometimes when you shift apps on Teams, it doesn't hold your context very well. So if you want to watch the output in Teams and build, having two different tools for that is a good thing. Right now, I just have a browser session on the regular Teams app, but this is kind of separates my authoring. You know what I mean? So I like it.
No, that's awesome.
If you are into or using it all shifts, there's a whole bunch of Power Automate actions got released. I mean, an amazing amount of that. And if you haven't checked out shifts and integrated stuff on top of that, the Power BI sharing, did you see this one?
I did.
There is I was waiting for you to cover it, but hey, it's over here in this one. So if you're in Power BI, you basically search for the name of a team, hit share, hit boom, and it tosses it over into that, so you can get it over into that one very quickly on top of it. They also had where you can copy individual charts, and if you paste them into a Teams conversation, it'll embed that on top of it with a thumbnail of the graphics on top of it. If you have an app that you've built or others, and it does a notification, that notification is now in the activity feed. So, and you can see that as a differentiated action within the feed. So now those icons mean something. Like these are things that came from like a Scrum thing or something else, right?
Okay. I'm gonna give, because it's been a while since I've actually used that feed quite a lot. I need to give it maybe another look.
You do, and if you're coming back from vacation, that's your sanity feed, right? You know, like I got to go through like, what do I need to go pay attention to? There were 24 new permissions for the team's graph APIs, so much more granular granting, not like you can do everything. So increased on top of that one. A whole bunch of mobile device capability for apps. So the apps are getting access to camera, location, mic, natively, including authentication context on top of it. There is now a graph API to subscribe for notifications for new app messages. So an amazing amount on top of that. There's also new Teams graph APIs in 1.0, including some messaging APIs for doing like Teams chat through the APIs, which previously wasn't on top of that. And again, although I prefer to do it over in VS Studio, App Studio did get an update with some nice features on top of it. And then, of course, there's the admin surface for streamlined management of apps, a whole bunch of concepts as to, is it published, submitted, you know, so there's a workflow around application submission and curation. So if you took one of those apps and you uploaded it, it doesn't mean everyone can instantly use it. It's like it's got to go through some organizational routing, which is kind of nice on top of it. Third-party subscription purchase experience got improved. So if you're using any of the third-party ones on top of that, you have that, and they kind of have the whole components that are there. There's also grant consent to the Graph API. So admins will be able to grant Graph API permissions on behalf of the entire tenant. So you don't have to go through those individual consent frameworks for every user, because those can seem kind of scary as though you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before, that consent frameworks are one of those things where Microsoft used to be very strict on this. We're like, first, you have to decide if you're going to do it, and then the tenant admin has to do it, and the user has to consent. Well, because dialogues can look scary to people, maybe there are things you're like, no, I pre-approved this. I already know what it does. I just want Todd to feel this beautiful sign-on and use experience. I don't want to scare him with a dialogue. So that's really important one on top of that. Obviously, the pop-out experience, but did you know the pop-out experience is going to have apps?
No, I did not.
So that's pretty intriguing, actually, that the app pop-out experience on top of it. And then we've shown ways to do templates within the APIs, and we've been working through that example with people, how to use the clone APIs and the rest of the whole stuff. Well, my friend, APIs and automated provisioning are beautiful, but so is visual. You know, there's a GUI, an API, and a power something for that. Well, we've shown you that, and we got the visual on top of it. And then there is Microsoft Lists. So
I'm pumped for this. Yes,
I really do. The only thing I would wish about this is that I had a singular app between To-Do and Lists, that I could have it all.
Well, what's so funny that you mentioned that is I immediately saw Lists and got excited. It was within. I kind of felt bad because right away I was like angry that I didn't have an iOS app for it. I'm like, I just learned this was a thing, and now I'm mad that I don't have it on my iPhone.
So Lists is for information tracking, organization. They're smart. It's you can track issues, assets, all sorts of things on top of it. And I mean, obviously this is a Microsoft 365 service, so it's beautifully integrated into the SharePoint things you love. But it does have a little more of like a template approach and more of a, I don't know how to say, it's like a standalone interface for creating these. That's user friendly. Because a lot of times, otherwise, you have to go out to SharePoint and go in and generate. And
I think lists are just getting the love they deserve.
Yeah. And so anyway, go check those out. Watch the demonstration video and go through it on top of it. And if you do it, notice that you're getting they're really upping the visualization capabilities of lists within this. And obviously, they always showed this demo where, hey, if you're in SharePoint, you apply conditional formatting and stuff that would flow through. And they did those demos at SharePoint conference last year. Well, you're just basically seeing those kind of things being pushed down to more regular users being able to instrument and use those features on top of it. Contextual search. Enough said. I've wanted that for the longest time. Yeah. You're like, okay. I know I want the result from this team. Like I'm in this team with all the other directors for the MTC, and I'm also in the worldwide MTC team. And if you were like, something happened over in the community and I want to go find it, you're going to find it in everything you can see historically. Now you don't have to do that.
So previously I could do a search and then filter. This is like go to somewhere.
I'm not interested in filtering. I just want to search here.
Okay, I just want to
like, you could do that, but it was like you had to hit the filter button and then drop down and do all that.
This is like if I know I'm in channel ABC, I go to channel ABC and then search.
Yeah, you can do that. Or if you notice the /find command where you can then pick a team And so right now it's in the the control F. You go up to the and you can pick the context specific thing under find, and so you have it. So go check it out. Contextual source. Azure Active Directory single sign-on. End users will get automatic sign-on for Teams apps on both desktop and mobile. And after you're signed into Teams, you won't have to sign into apps that integrate with single sign-on. So a beautiful pass-through experience. And we have an Azure AD thing coming up here in a minute or two on top of that. Azure AD conditional access will enable users to run app tabs even if they've set conditional access policies for trusted device.
Awesome.
So you have on top of that one. And again, resource-specific consent stuff for the admin approval things, right? Team owners to install an app for a specific team and restrict the app scope only to that one team. So if you're allowing distributed consent, consent only happens there.
Oh, wow. That's
so
awesome.
If you're consenting, to a tool, and that was one of those people say, hey, all these apps are great, but what about the organizational privacy policy? Well, maybe you're okay with granting it to here, but not to there, so you get more granular permissions on top of that. Adaptive card kickups on top of it, messaging actions for mobile on top of things. And then
what are messaging actions? I don't know what that is.
So those are the more granular scenarios from the mobile applications that
like creating a meeting or
So if you like to watch video, assign tasks, create notes, all that kind of stuff, so you can have those little pop-up things. And developers notice there's a little Evernote icon in there, so other third parties can extend that as well. So then they also have this external audiences bookings integration for doing external appointments and Teams integration and everything else. Notice that the receiver sides, on this particular case is, web only experience for that far side joins. We've got that kind of nice consumer integration on top of it. I'm very excited about this, and we will show this. NDI for Teams and Skype integration. So NDI is actually owned. The standard it's out there, but it was created by Newtek, who makes the TriCaster, which we use to do a lot of our virtual shows. But it's industry standard, and so OBS uses it. Wirecast uses it. I think Social Lives is taken in RTMP, and they have direct integration. These things. So there's a lot of those good things. And so interoperability of Teams and Skype TX devices, which is what's used in a lot of broadcast studios. You see those people joining remotely on TV from their devices, right? That's what powers that, is that TX
Doug,
experience.
Tell me, if anyone out there is doing broadcast, I want to make sure I understand this. If this would save us from having to actually just screen grab a Teams call, right? If you want to get video out of Teams.
You'll be able to take anything that does NDI and essentially stream it. And I will do a demo of this, right? So I'll show this people, and we'll probably just use OBS since everybody can go get it. And even if you have another thing that does NDI, it won't matter, right? So you can do complex composite scenarios, and bring components in, and so you saw some of that stuff in action on the Build conference. They were using some of those capabilities during that capability on top of it. And then all right, so then they had the normal Teams update and all the rest of that good stuff.
That was crazy.
Right? So then there was the Teams Build platform on top of it. We talked about the code extension on top of it, virtual agents. So there's a nice summary post on top of that one. They go through all the details that we showed in the previous one on top of it. You talked about the fluid framework, which was amazing in how we're leveraging and going through that stuff. So a bunch of the automation things for it. So I would say go check out the fluid framework overview in this post, which we'll have up in the video, because I wanted to get to the Microsoft Graph Toolkit and one Azure AD announcement. So I got we're gonna go a couple minutes over, but I think it's good content on top of it. So if you have not checked this out, the Graph Toolkit allows you to very, very simply take and do very sophisticated stuff with low-code, no-code web style development to include and build things out. And so if you go out to mgt.dev, you're going to get this component framework that sits out here. And there's a wonderful video from the build session where essentially they just have Visual Studio Code with Node.js. They start a new document, index.html, just do a little HTML5 snippet with header body. They make one include statement, and you get all these components you can put in, like people cards. So if you look over on the side here, this is all the code you would put in, right, to get a people picker.
Wow.
To get a login experience, all you would do to get the entire MSAL authentication is that.
That's amazing.
It's thousands of lines of code. You get all that stuff from these simple components on top of it. So if you want to embed the calendar somewhere on top of it, and you go to the agenda, then boom, you get these agenda experience, and all you're doing is customizing the tags to change the output on top of it. So you can get person cards, flyouts, right, with complete integration and everything else, all these components, all these visual components, with nothing but JavaScript, with a single tag reference in a regular old HTML document published to a Node.js instance.
Hey, Doug, I'm going to have to drop. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all good.
I have the YouTube. I'll stop the stream in a couple minutes after I see you're done.
Oh, okay. I can pop over. If I have it, if you go in there and I've done it, I'll see if I can auth to in order to do it. But yeah, you go do your thing, and we'll go on top of that stuff, and I'll wrap it up. All right.
Everyone have a great day.
Yeah. So I think Todd might turn into a giant question mark on us, and he just did. On top of it. Okay. So there's two other things I wanted to cover. Go check out the mgt.dev in order to show the graph toolkit, and then Project Cortex we've talked about released its taxonomy graph APIs in preview. So you can go ahead and look at like the behind the scenes components. And there was also that Project Cortex series we talked about, 4 or 5 shows ago, where there's this whole series, and those recordings are out there now walking through Project Cortex. Well, it's releasing this summer, and the entire API surface for the term set and the control frameworks is also being released out there in preview. So if you're looking at automation and integration, or you want to write, anything you would want to do, because you can call the graph APIs from PowerShell and stuff. So you want to take something and like pre-populate term stores or do all sorts of things about the groups and everything else, sort of flush out some of these constructs. You can totally do that through this framework using the taxonomy graph APIs. The documentation is out there for everything on preview, and then the interfaces are obviously going to be found out there when the APIs are released. So the documentation's out, the preview APIs are coming, and again, Cortex is this summer, so go check out that and the recording session of it if you had on top of it. I did publish this into our notes, but I wanted to point out that there is an entire book of news from Build, searchable book of news. So that page is references in there, and it wouldn't be a Flash Friday with me unless I went in and did at least one security announcement. And while there were several things that were related to that domain, the biggest one for me was Azure AD, and this is more the business version, not Azure AD B2C, but the regular Azure AD that business customers now announced external identities is available in public preview. And what that means is you can go ahead and use those external authentication sources like Google and Facebook and have those people come in and get seamless access to resources using those credentials in a business-to-business context. Now, it's important to note, this doesn't mean you should start hosting SaaS applications within your directory and invite people in order to make that your customer directory. What you're trying to do is you have a SaaS application, you integrate it to your directory, and that application would be shared with those people who are your business collaborators. So if you're truly providing a B2C service, there is still a reason you would separate those from a security context standpoint. So don't try and turn your corporate directory into your customer directory. But if there are times when you are collaborating with these people from a B2B standpoint, that's what this is for. And so you can put your company branding on top of it. Now, I know there are times when people are both a customer to you and a business partner, and those lines get washed over. And that's why these scenarios are important to support. So that user who's coming in, whether they're both a split collaborator with you or only a one, gets that nice sign-on experience that they're used to. And you get the ability to horizon manage them from both sides, from your corporate assets presentation out and the sharing of things that might be SaaS applications or other things that you've tied into. But if you're hosting a SaaS application, you should stay true to that enterprise architecture and make sure you're doing that. If you need more help, please reach out to somebody at Microsoft or a partner, and we'll help you walk you through those architectural patterns around that. There's plenty of sessions on it, but if you ever need discussion items on it, you can have that. Anyway, I thought it was a great addition to capabilities because previously you would have had to have done really odd constructs in B2C in order to get these kind of things in. And now you don't have to do that. So it allows you to maintain that nice trusted experience, govern more external users authenticate effectively, and manage those identities at scale. So just increases that surface area that you can do. If you recall previously, we had that where you could do some B2B with Google, but the other Facebook provider wasn't in there. So this essentially keeps extending that B2B auth surface to a more flexible audience. All right, we're 4 minutes over. A ton of stuff. Todd and I'll be showing more. I'm going to rework the demonstration series we were going through around that API provisioning application in the context of some of these changes from the Graph Toolkit and everything else. and some of the single sign-on stuff, so we'll show that. If I can get my preview tenant for the new publication, I'll show that, but otherwise, that's just how you publish the app and go through an approval process, so we shouldn't need to rework that, even though it has changed. And that's it. I hope everyone has a safe Memorial Weekend here in the US and wherever else you are. I hope you have a great weekend. We'll be back next week with more show and tell and dive in on some of these things. Probably heavy demo focus next week to show the power of some of these things, as opposed to just running through websites and talking about it. So again, hope everybody's safe and has a